Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a lovely, lovely Thursday. I found out today that I could actually turn music on for you all finally, and I'm very excited about that. I don't know if you can actually hear it, but oh, it's because I'm not sharing my screen yet, but when I start sharing my screen, we'll have music for the first time, and I'm excited about that. Our friends over at Heartbound Pirate Software, Thor, the amazing one, said that he will never DMCA us for using his music. So I am super duper excited about that. Chris, welcome to the stream. I'm so happy you could make it. I know it's late over there. I hope you're having a good evening. How are you today? I'm gonna quickly just throw out a couple. Well, I'm a little late today, so everything's all over the place. But let's get things in order over here on my end so we can actually have fun with what we're going to do today. I've got the right stuff now. And I need to just find you all. Getting ready for Easter. Any big Easter plans? I know we are talking about going to church on Sunday and having lunch or dinner with my mother, but I know it's your son's first holiday, first Easter. Any big Easter egg hunts? I'm just hopping on the Twitters to tell people we are live. Man, I'm struggling today. Just driving Man, for you all, that's a long drive. Or, for me, that's a long drive. For you all, isn't that like an extraordinarily long drive? Hello, Jessica. Welcome to the stream today. Just writing something real quick. All right. So I have what I think will be a fun stream planned for today. I hope you're all excited too. I'm gonna switch us over to where we be, and we can start talking about. We don't need that. We don't need that. We need this. Let's talk about where we are. Today's stream got 3 things I want to do. I want to finish the CLI for Framework. That's our plan today. Thing 2 is somebody shared a Angular blog post, and we're gonna read through that. And then finally, and I can make this bigger. And finally, we're gonna part 3 is talk about the Redwood RSC release, because I think all that's awesome. That's everything I want to do. That is not the order we're gonna go in today, though, because I have one of the best Angular developers I know in the chat. I'm gonna go in this order, and I hope everybody's okay with that, because I think it'll be more fun when we can leverage people's talents and be in a community together and do cool things like that. So I hope you're cool with that. Let's have some fun, and let's get into it. Pulling it up, somebody tweeted this at me, so we're gonna have that going on. Also, can you even... Oh, no, you can't. Try the music. We're using, as I mentioned earlier, Pirate Software said they will never DMCA us for using their soundtrack from Heartbound. This is the Heartbound soundtrack. It sounds great. So I'm going to take advantage of it. Yay, this is fixed finally. So our friend Jan hit us up on a blog post. I wanted to go through this as a group because I think this is from Tell me when we're good. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make it louder than me. That was a mistake. And then let's also make sure that I'm using the right mic setup. There we go. That should be better. I'm sorry. I just turned it all the way up and it's like, nope, too loud. Understood. All right, well, now I should be loud enough because the mic's closer and everything's good. I want to go through this modern Angular application HTTP client blog post because we had a question about this months ago at this point, and I kind of want to just follow up on it. So let's get into it. So we've got a treat from the Angular team in the Renaissance era. What is he? Linking to the Renaissance post. If y'all haven't read this, our friend Dario wrote good things, but I'm not going to go through that because that's basically what we went through when we did our tutorial stream. So here is the question. So the challenge we had, if y'all remember, was we were trying to do HTTP client stuff and it just wasn't working the way we thought it would, or at least it wasn't super obvious. So Gion's going to guide us through how we're going to do it because some of the guides might be outdated. So how we do this in Angular 17. I'm excited. So first off, we have to have the HTTP client provided by Angular Common HTTP. Cool. To use it, we'll just need to add it as a provider. This looks like what we did when we were doing HTTP stuff. And that's it. Yeah, we did this. We were good to here. I'm feeling, Jan's making me feel good. Making me feel like I read something correctly. So let's say we have a database object, say a movie, and we want to do some CRUD on it. Typically, you would want to create a service that provides the methods for these operations. Let's call this movie service and create a skeleton with a method getting all movies. And okay, so he's just outlining what we're going to do. And this looks like where we started, not where we finished. So also feeling really good. Jan, thank you. You're a total G for setting us up this way. I also like how you have this laid out so far. Let's assume we have a GraphQL API and we could just implement our all movies using HTTP to make all the fetch. I like this. Okay. I would like to simplify this without GraphQL, but I appreciate that it's GraphQL because that's totally what I would be doing. Calling myself out. First, we need to find a new type to represent the response. And we could get the specific structure. So this is the edges. I would just code gen this. Let's see if you do the same. When working with the API, you'll likely use some code generator. Man, that Jan guy. Don't you just love it when somebody does exactly what you hope they'll do? Yes, I would absolutely use a code generator. AO. Hello, AJC Web Dev. I think that's Anthony. Is this Anthony? Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the stream. We're doing a little bit. You're here for the okay. Well, we'll move the Redwood up in stream order then. We're doing some Angular first, and then we'll jump back to some Redwood in a little bit. All right. For the sake of this example, we'll create an interface to represent some response manually. So we're good here, and then we get to the client stuff. And all right, here's where I got confused on that stream a while ago. I got confused with the observable stuff because observables, Angular, RxJS, this just wasn't making sense to me back then. So this is confirming what I thought we should have been doing. So he makes a post request, gets the response object, passes that, and then just returns that. That feels super straightforward to me. I like this. This is great. We're good with this. This is just a post method because we are sending a request body, and also it's GraphQL, so you actually use post. The get all movies method returns an observable of movie list in this example. But he's saying you could omit the type annotation. I probably wouldn't omit the type definition, but I like that it's there. And then, yes, RxJS. Here's where we are. While I'm excited about signals as much as the next guy, making HTTP requests is one of the typical async operations for which RxJS observables are a perfect fit, making a great argument for RxJS still having a solid place in the Angular alongside signals. I'm curious where this quote came from. But I'm I understand where we're going now. So now that we have our movie services set up and we have our component, let's create a movie interface. Although using any at the beginning and implementing the types later is valid, we already have our types. So let's just skip that. We could probably infer this from our code gen if we had that. So I'm going to assume that's what we would do instead. So if we look at this movie list component, we inject the service. I'm good with this. There's an empty object to hold the movies. And then, okay, this is what we did. Awesome. I'm so excited. If anybody remembers what we did on stream, if not, I can go pull up the VOD and we can look at it, but I don't think we want to, this is what I tried to do. And I was right. And I had no idea what I was doing with RxJS. So this is super validating that this is exactly what I would expect to do. So this is wonderful. And then I think the rest of this just looks really good. I wish, I'm going to keep reading for a second before I make an assumption. Yeah, the only thing I wish was explained just a bit more is that this is RxJS. Like, that is just obfuscated and obscure to me as somebody, like, I knew this because I've read it, but if I was a first timer, that's maybe my feedback on this. Maybe it shows up later, but we're okay. So we have the movie service, we've got the list. In this case, placing our code inside the constructor is safe because it doesn't depend on any input. Oh, okay. This was a conversation. If people are like, what is this part? I actually asked this question because somebody said it was safe to put the API request in the constructor method. And I said that and somebody was like, no, that's not safe. And I didn't understand why. And here's the why, apparently. So if our component has an input, so takes in a prop, if we were in React world, if it were, our code would fail because the inputs aren't initialized at the time of instantiation. That's why it's sometimes recommended to place the logic inside of ng-on init instead. You could also put this call in an arbitrary method that is called something like button click. Okay, so we put it in the constructor here. We're saying this is probably not safe. On init would be safer. And I'm good with that. I appreciate that because we need the inputs. That makes a lot of sense to me. Another way to handle the subscription is use the async pipe in the template. And this way, Angular will automatically subscribe and unsubscribe from the observable for you, and you won't have to assign the response to a property in the component. Due to the structure of the return data, however, we'll need to use the RxJS map operator to extract the movies from the response. So this seems helpful because then I don't need the onDestroy method, right? I'm guessing that's correct. I'm also guessing this wouldn't be valid if I had an input as well. I would need to put that in the ng-init. That's the word I'm looking for. I'm also guessing this $sign here is because we're dealing with a subject of a observable, and that's just a common syntax. This is neat. I've learned something today. We maybe will do the RxJS tutorial one day just to actually not be dumb at that. I love this. This is a great explanation on how to do it. I think there's a couple places where if I didn't know what I know, I'd probably have more questions. And then there's this whole mixing of like, hey, this is fine because we don't have inputs, but then I don't know. I'm just curious if it matters. These are questions I have. But that's more feedback for the author, not necessarily the library or the how-to. But now I know how to do it, and I'm excited about that. But let's talk Redwood, because I think this is all we were really here to do with this Angular post. Yeah. I know Anthony's here for Redwood. I'm all about Redwood. So let's see if we can find the Redwood post quickly. It was, guessing it's this one. Yeah. Let's talk Redwood. Let's talk Redwood. I have such mixed feelings about this post, by the way, but I'm also very excited about it. So, for those that know me, I love Redwood. I think it's a fabulous library, / framework. Yeah, I like Redwood. So my background is Rails. I'm a Rails developer. And the things that I really like about Redwood is it reminds me about all the positives of Rails, but it's in the Node React ecosystem, which I feel like is what people are more used to, and it keeps you in one language and some other community-based things that I won't get into, but I really, really, really like what they're thinking. So let's kind of break this down a little bit. So back in July, Redwood team said that they're going to bring React Server components first class into Redwood. And what's been really challenging for me about this is it has this implication against the backend side of Redwood. And for those that don't know Redwood super duper well, let's just kind of go over here. So the idea of Redwood is they've kind of given us this Yarn workspace. And inside the Yarn workspace, there's two pieces. You have web over here and you have server over here. And effectively, the server is just a GraphQL server. And web is a React with Apollo with React Router, easy setup, React mode app, both of which are fantastic. And all of this runs kind of in a nice connector way, and they have a bunch of patterns to make things simple. One of the things I really love about Redwood, and this will be easier to show than explain, is the concept of cells. And I kind of like the how to build a cell example at the very end. So cells are this idea that like, hey, I need data. And this is how Redwood does data fetching, is they kind of say, hey, data fetching has basically 4 states: loading, empty, failure, success. And there's some other conditions and things you need to figure out as you're doing it. So, and you can overwrite these things, but the query, which is how do you get the data? You have this is empty check that you can overwrite that determines what an empty state is. Like they define what the default is empty is, but you're going to change what the outputs are to hopefully make this make a little more sense and do pagination better. But these are kind of your default states that you're always coding in a component. Like I at least I code these 4 things whenever I'm using any API, whether it is REST or GraphQL, it doesn't matter. This is what I'm doing. And these are similar to the helpers. Like if you think React Query, you think Redux, you think any of those, these are going to be like the is loading, the is error, is data, like those elements you abstract out of the response. This is what I use. And then ultimately what they're doing is they're just wrapping it and displaying it, and it just looks great. And it just renders the right component at the right time. You don't have to think about it. So this is their how you deal with data in your app concept. And I think this is just very straightforward because like, you know what your post object's going to look like. Now you can actually see what the post is going to be. And then how you iterate over it and display it in the UI is perfectly fine and sane. So that's the old model. React Server Components is kind of the pushback against this model. And so this is kind of where things go. And so let's just throw this up. I've read this before, but I'm gonna summarize kind of what I've read here before. So the big idea for Redwood and why it's such a great framework is the idea is you go from nothing to something as quickly as possible and not deal with all the crud that goes with like initializing an app. One of the things that's really not great about starting a new Node project for many of us, I'm sure, is you have to set up a linter, you have to set up a prettier, you have to set up Apollo, you have to set up GraphQL, you have all these different things you have to set up, and there's a lot of time and cost associated to that. You have to set up your database, you have to set up, the list goes on and on and on. And so Redwood's goal is make it simple. Make it simple, make it fast, get building. Start building features. Like you're trying to get your company up and running, not trying to figure out how to make the perfect code. And I think that's just like such a wonderful, wonderful idea. And yes, Jessica, I love starter.dev, and I'll be honest, Rails is what inspired starter.dev. And then when I saw Redwood, I was like, well, we're never going to build a Redwood starter because Redwood just does it. And it does it really, really, really well. Now, I will say Starter does a really great job. And for those that are like, what the hell is Starter? This is starter.dev. We made a CLI to try to bootstrap a bunch of common packages and packs that people were doing to do exactly what Redwood is doing, but for other setups. These are not nearly as in-depth as Redwood, though, and I think that's just something to talk about to some degree, but I think it's based off of your project and what you're doing. I think Redwood's really good for production scale SaaS applications. It has some failures when it comes to whatchamacallit. It has some fallbacks when it comes to static content, and I don't think it's like a true Jamstack app in that sense. There are ways around that, and they have utility for it, but I don't think it's as effective as, since somebody just came in and asked, what is Astro? Also, welcome to the stream. Like, I think Astro and other frameworks like that do a much better job at the static rendering of content. To answer the question of what is Astro and why should we use it, Astro is another framework that's really great at content authorship and static websites. They have moved away from that, and now they're just another framework. But what's really cool about Astro is it doesn't put you into this box of, I have to use React, I have to use Angular, I have to use Vue. Astro is just HTML and CSS, and then when you're ready to do some progressive enhancement to add JavaScript under your page, you just say, hey, I want to pull in some React and do things. And totally, Astro has a database now. And so they've gone away from this like just static content thing, because they had the content collections forever. And content collections have been this whole concept that let you move into, I love that I have somebody who hosts a podcast about the Jamstack, and we're talking about how the Jamstack is kind of dead. And I'm sorry. I feel bad about that. I love the Jamstack. I actually think it has its place, and I don't think it's dead. I think it's very alive, and there's great tools. I think Astro is definitely something in that space. But yeah, Jamstack has gone full server. So like you have API endpoints now, and it has a lot of those features that some of these more language-centric frameworks have, because they decided, hey, it's only dead because it won. I like that opinion. So now it's kind of stretching out a little bit, so to speak. And so Astro is really neat in the sense that you can build the static stuff, get that really quickly, but then you also have all the server functionality that allows you to do even more with it. And having Astro DB, I think it was a natural progression for them, because not content creators, but marketers, who are usually the people providing content for sites like Astro, don't want to work inside of code. They don't want to write Markdown. They don't want to write content collections. They want to write data through a form into a database or something like that. So I think Astro DB was a natural progression for them, and I think it fits really well into the story that they were trying to build with it. So I think that's why Astro is awesome. I forgot to change the name of the stream, but we are going to talk about Astro today when we talk about Framework.dev, because Framework.dev is built with Astro, and Astro is awesome because if I want to use Angular, I can use Angular. If I want to use React, I'll use React. Or if I don't want to use any JavaScript whatsoever, I don't have to, and I think that's the best part. So coming back to Redwood, yes, we could use pre-render to take care of some of the static stuff. I think it's good, but then when you start talking about dynamic content, that's where it starts to fail a little bit. So this problem of like, hey, when I'm an authenticated user, how does that happen? And not having SSR mode necessarily with Redwood is maybe one of its biggest downfalls, but for pre-rendering kind of your homepage and stuff like that, that'll probably be fine. So that's just something that's maybe my biggest qualm with Redwood, but it's still a reason I like Redwood. So I think they had a lot of really good ideas here, and I think this hurts, but it's true, which is when you're building a new app, GraphQL is not necessarily where you should start your API. Unless you have a perfect vision of how every single interaction in your API is going to be, if you're going to have a mobile client, a web client, a native desktop client, public API users, like maybe at that point, absolutely turn this on right away. but it's not like the fastest for getting up and running. I think this is where the RSC story is starting to take us. Like, just write your database calls inside of your server components and let that render. There's a lot of problems with that. So don't do that. Write a services layer. And this is where this article is going to end up going. And I totally agree with what they're thinking with it. But okay, let's talk about like some of the concerns. Productivity. It's the thing I just said. You're not going to build as quickly with GraphQL because, excuse me, there's more layers of things to think about and things that maybe you're not as familiar with as somebody who's been developing for a short period of time. It's just a larger barrier to entry for new people. If you got security. So this is the whole idea of the way that GraphQL handles security is very different than how something like REST would handle security, but also how all of that wraps into your front end and like data leaking. And there's a lot of considerations here. I think this has been my biggest qualm. Not my biggest qualm. I think this is something I have talked to. God, I'm trying to remember what their name is. It wasn't Rob. It's one of the Davids, but it's not David Thierson, I think is his name. I've been talking to him about that a little bit. But like one of the things I've wanted to do with Redwood is get data loaders and yeah, that David T, exactly. I've been wanting to get like data loaders and or the other thing that I want, batch querying into Redwood. And those are just non-simple. Nobody does know how to say it. I can't say it, but it is like Theresin. We'll go with that, Theresin. But there's like problems because you don't have data loaders and you don't have other thing out of the box. And I think that's super batch querying out of the box. And I think those are really hard to add. Now, what's really neat is Redwood uses Prisma for their database layer, and Prisma actually does solve this problem for you. And I think that's really neat that like under the hood, like you don't need data loaders because your database ORM takes care of this for you. But I think as you get layers and layers deeper, this does become a problem. So, you know, that I think this point's a little weaker than it was than these 2 points, but I hear where their thought process is. And so them opting out of GraphQL by default and moving to RSC by default it's a big step. It's a big change. That being said, this is what I do love. And I think, Anthony, you said it really well earlier as well. And I'm big into this is it being off by default moving forward stinks. But the fact that they're still making it a first-class citizen by making it this simple to just, hey, set it up, turn it on, it's there, you can start using it tomorrow and like nothing changes. I think that's super fabulous. So the fact that it's not, it's not gone, but it's not default, I think that's super duper great. Yeah, big props. Now, I think this part's going to be interesting. This is all about kind of the RSC architecture a little bit. So like, how is this going to work? So their data flow as an example. So your browser makes a request to some page and that's going to return. Oh, and this is the old model versus the new model. So here's the GraphQL version. So GraphQL version was going to go, hey, let's grab that page. It returns the bundle that has that page, lets it render. React renders it, and then now all of a sudden we have to go back to the server, now the API server instead of the web server, and say, hey, do the operation, hit the database, come back, do some resolution, return all this. For the client, nobody sees this, but there's just all these steps that have to happen just to go, hey, give me data and return it in the way I asked. And like you have that long loading period, and eventually it returns and then you get the render success. And this, again, this is what would happen here. So you render, which would be the loading state is what triggers, and then eventually on success it would do this. If it fails, of course, you would get this. And ditto if it was empty. It would just start here, end in one of these 3 states, hopefully the third one. So if we go, oh, and then of course the very next thing is they show the cell and how I explained it. So So I think this is going to be, this is exactly what I was just saying. So like, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. And is this made with Mermaid? That's a great question. I don't know. If anybody knows in chat whether or not this was made with Mermaid, let me know. I'm curious. Yeah, I was gonna say this look. I mean, it's not this. Actually, you know what? This might be Excalibur. This could be Excalibur now that I'm looking at it, because you can make boxes like this and you make the text look like that. This is probably Excalibur and Rob doing it by hand. I agree. That's probably what happened. Although you can use Mermaid and Excalibur now to do this, so it's possible he used the AI for that. And to answer the question, how long have I been coding? Almost 15 years now? Jeez, I'm getting old. 15 years, let's say that. Because I'm feeling old. All right, so jumping on. So now we're saying this next part of the article, and if anybody wants to just read this while I'm going, there's no reason. Oh, do I really have to go all the way to Twitch to post this? Yep, I have to go to Twitch to post this. This is annoying. My thing is not letting me just post for y'all. Well, here you go. Here's the, oh, and I have to log in now. I'm not even logged into Twitch. Am I bad or what? All right, there you go. There's the link. This is the article we're reading right now. So, let's look at the RSC version of this and how it kind of simplifies things. So, if we look at this diagram one more time, we see we have the web server, API server, database. If we come back to here, we just have one server. We've gotten rid of the web server, the API server. It's just one unified central place. And if we look at it, 1 and 2 stay the same. We make a request, we come back, and then there's a render. This goes to the server again. There are all those same steps, but now just in a single place, one database call, and then eventually just return that to the page and render it. So we've simplified our mental model for how data has to flow through our system. Like there's no 2 servers, it's a unified single server, and it just makes life better. And this is the best part. And I think this is where the Redwood team kind of stole my heart a little bit with how they thought about this. This is the only piece that's going to change between what exists today in Redwood and where they're going with the new architecture. So if we scroll down, we can see they just replaced it with a new data fetch, which just calls the DB directly and calls a find many. And I think this in of itself is just like, what a great move by them. And I think this is the winner. Oh, absolutely. That's going to be the thought. Like, this is not Remix, but it looks like Remix. And it also looks in a lot of ways similar to Next now in its own ways. But I still like that they have this patterning here. And eventually what I would love to see. So I'm just going to borrow this for a minute, and we're going to go to a code editor, and we're going to play the game for a minute. What I would love to see is maybe this is fine as is, but what I'm hoping the underlying return is for all of this is like the cell is just something that's a suspense boundary, like a React suspense with fallback of loading. And maybe it is doing this under the hood and I'm just being a bad right now, but I would hope that eventually this is all this is. That's what I want it to be. It's good seeing you, Chris. Thanks for joining, man. Yeah, I do this kind of in a non-Redwood setting as well, but I'm hoping like under the hood, this is what a cell actually is it goes from, if we come back to the actual cell implementation, instead of it being this big giant query if thing, it's now just a suspense boundary. Now, I think suspense needs a lot more love at this point. I think suspense needs to handle failure and empty states. The fact that suspense is just success right now has always bothered me because of how promises and everything work. I really wish there was more than just a fallback on loading and or a placeholder. So like, that's maybe my one qualm with the React server component implementation. But the fact that Redwood's going to be supporting this out of the box, I think that's just super neat, because now everything is just kind of straightforward. You get it. I think there's a lot. I'm just realizing something. How are they dealing with this being async? Because that's not obvious now. This has to be an async function, because this is an async operation. I'm guessing this is just like a little oversight by Rob, and that's probably fine. I bet this has to be async though. Otherwise, there's no way the rest of this works. Or it just returns the promise and deals with it upstream. That could also be Redwood magic. But I think the reason I'm even calling it out is, imagine instead of just products, let's say there were 3 objects I needed. Let's say I needed products. Let's say I needed a cart object. And we'll just pretend like there's something here. I would want to do like an await promise.all here. And that doesn't work unless I can do an async. And of course I need to, not fat finger everything to high hell, but hopefully y'all know what I'm trying to say. Like, this is ideally what I could do long term. Oh, is there? I actually didn't know there was some Babel magic. Do you have something on a link that we could look at for that? Because that would be really cool to look at how it's doing that all under the hood. I know the way they get imported into the ecosystem is some black magic, and I've tried to replicate it before, and my head went a little sideways in the amount of time I had for it. But this is definitely an interesting like slice of the pie. But this has to be it. Like, my guess is he just forgot this, because I feel like this has to work this way. Because if it doesn't make sense. Fair enough. Well, maybe we'll go look at some source later. Yeah, maybe we'll play that game. But I think this is great though. Like, query just becomes data, and like everything stays the same. I think that's the nice part about what's changed. So I'm gonna compare this to Next.js for a minute, because I think everything should be compared to Next.js when talking about React these days, because of all the monotony that is the ecosystem right now. But the fact that I come to this and I have to figure out whether or not I'm in which router I'm in, and I have to think about apps very differently depending on which app I'm in and how data gets fetched in these different things. And now I have to think about all these different trees and subtrees and yada yada. Sorry to yada yada that, but there's a lot of yada yada there. My mental model for Next had to change 4 times before we got to where we are today. Redwood, my mental model only changes once. And I think that is just such a, if anything, that's the beauty. One mental model shift, and I can keep going with Redwood exactly as I have for, I've only been doing it for a little over 1.5 years at this point. I'm not very long on Redwood, but the things I've done, I've enjoyed. And like, this is great. I think that's awesome. I think this hurdle and mental model stuff has just been terrible. So, I mean, kudos to the Redwood team, because you all had a model that just worked and found a way to keep your model consistent without rewriting the entire framework. And I think that is an enormous feat and an enormous amount of foresight that y'all had to get to where you are today. So seriously, congrats. This is huge for you all. The rest of this article, or at least the next part of this article, talks about the React server component rendering pattern. I'm less interested in reading through this. If people are curious, like, more about this, I think this is more of like a React concept than it is necessarily needed to understand Redwood. But like, it's cool. We could talk about it if you want. I would just assume let's skip over it, but it's handy to see. And if you're curious, like, how things work under the hood, read this. It's great. Rob does a fabulous job. I will never be able to explain this as well as he has in this article. Yeah, it did take a long time to figure this out. So, I mean, why don't we just... Oh, wow. They made this better than when I did it yesterday. I did this on Tuesday getting ready, and this was just not a fun experience. This was not the instructions the other day. The instructions the other day was to do to start a new canary build of Redwood and then do these steps. And they've just fixed that by saying, no, actually just use this Git repo instead. And I'm actually really happy about that, because this was not here 2 days ago when I was looking. Let's do it, because I think this will be so much better. So much better. Let's do it the right way. I put it in the wrong place. I'll remember later. So we have installed a bunch of stuff. We still have Apollo. We still have Next. I'm curious why Apollo is still in the mix. That's something I'm interested by. Because in this new world, I thought they were getting rid of the server API, or the server by default. Right. I agree with that. They can't get rid of Apollo to make it work, but well, you know what? Seeing is believing. Let's just go do this the right way. Where's the new, no, that's the GraphQL entry point. API, GraphQL, where's the web server? Where is the web server? Oh, it was there. I was just being silly. Okay. The server has been, yes, that I knew. I knew it was Yoga on Fastify, which I think's really good. Okay, so we can click on this. We can do stuff. They did. That's actually that's kind of a really cool app. I'm curious how they did all this. That's fun. I like this. Neat. Well, that's super easy to use. I'm not going to complain about that in terms of like how it looks. So let's look and see how they built it. So yeah, so this looks like what I expected. So we don't have a server anymore or a backend. We just have web. And inside of web, we're going to have some pages and the app. We can look at these and kind of see, yep, we still have Redwood. We still have Apollo. I guess this is for backwards compatibility, but I feel like in 8, they're going to have to, they don't have to remove it, but I think they have to remove it from the default, because by default, you won't have GraphQL. So I think with 8 and the scaffolder, this will just be something you have to pull in, and there will be like, this is something they would have to do as part of the, where's that command that I said I love this, like that'll be part of this command. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, because you're not using Apollo out of the box. So at this point, if we go, and here we go. Let's look at our routes. So page goes to the home page, which is, again, just right here. Like we're pulling some images. Let's go look and see what that is real quick. So homepage, and it just has a photo cell. And the photo cell is just some data from your services. So they've opted in this project to just do services instead of actually using a database, but you can totally do this with a database, an S3 equivalent. I think this is super cool and super simple. I think what I would like to see, though, is I would love to see services move all the way. I'm going to break it by doing this, but I want to see services here. And the reason I want to see services here is I think this is where Redwood could keep the power of the GraphQL server quickly. So in my head, in my perfect world universe, I think, so this is old Redwood architecture, right? And the new architecture is, and I'll label this because it should be labeled, this is a Yarn workspace. So if we copy and paste all this to the right a little bit, so here's the new world. Like, this is the new architecture. And we still have the same workspace, but server and web are no longer, we just have one web project by default. I would love them to call this just, actually, I think web's a great name for it. They should keep it web. But what I think they should do is I think they should reintroduce something called service or services, which this isn't your backend, but this is your shared universal database connector code and service code. And the reason I want this is if I do decide, so these, let's make this one blue so we're clear that this is like my pipe dream, and let's make this one green because this is going to be GraphQL. You can get this. But when you want to pull in GraphQL now, all of a sudden you have to go in through web, find all the stuff, move it back to GraphQL or vice versa, or you're still going to end up creating the services middle section, so to speak. So you're going to have to pipe data back and forth anyway. But something they've always talked about, and I know there's several threads about it, is this, all Redwood projects assume you only have one web, right? But what happens if, so like this is your client app, as an example. What happens if all of a sudden I want an admin app? Or, even better, I want an actual mobile, like a whole mobile project. Like and I'm going to put these in blue because again, I said these are pipe dreams here. Like I would love to horizontally scale my project this way within the mono repo and get all of this power, because I would love to be able to put, you know, my Expo project. I think it's still the pipe dream. I think it's still, there's still the thread on the community forum talking about this. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I guess I switched browsers a while ago. All my bookmarks are screwed up, but I bet if I look for monorepo multiple Redwood in one monorepo, like this is probably one of the most, I would be surprised if it's not the most viewed up. Wow, it's only got 9 likes. I'm kind of surprised by this. I'm also going to log in and make sure that I'm not the dummy who forgot to log in. Did I forget to like it? I totally forgot to like it. But I am following it, right? No? Yes, I am watching this one now. I should have been watching it, and where's the like? Ah, here's the like. Okay. We can make that 10 likes. This should be like one of the most liked requested features, and I'm just surprised it's not. But I think this would be awesome, and because they're in Yarn workspaces, this shouldn't be impossible. Yeah, like also like to this, like absolutely 100%. Like there's no reason not to have either of these things. And with Yarn workspaces, yeah, that is definitely way more popular than the one I found. But I think that's just the pipe dream, because I mean, ultimately, if I could have a project where it's like, hey, here's my web client and here's my service layer, and my service layer is what enables my GraphQL layer, and my GraphQL layer is eventually what enables my mobile. Like, I'm going to expand this out a little bit to kind of talk a little different hierarchy, but like if we just reduce these down, just get us a little more vertical height. Going for the vertical height. If anybody knows a shortcut to like get all things the same size in Excalibur that I'm just not aware of, that would be helpful. But like ideally, you know, you have your web down here. You would want your admin and your mobile down here. You would want services to sit here and GraphQL to kind of, I don't know. This is a weird hierarchy, but these read from here. This reads from here. And this also reads from here. So like this services piece, this is your universal shared logic. And then you have this GraphQL piece, and then, you know, third party, and this exists today, third party app that uses your API. So we'll make this white since this exists today. Like this is the ideal ecosystem. This is what I want. This is what would make Redwood damn near perfect. It's already damn near perfect. I don't know what I'm talking about, but this would make it even more damn near perfect. So go with me on it. But like this idea of I have this cell. So going back, well, I broke the whole app. I should probably fix that. But like going back to the photo cell, like it's just got everything I need, and then it calls this slide, and then this is a client component. Like this is fine. This is what I would expect to happen. Build it then. Should just take a weekend, right? I won't have time, Anthony. I just won't have time to build this. I mean, I want to build it, but I just won't have time. I know how hard it is to build this. I also wonder if Yarn is what's holding them up more than anything. I wonder if moving to NX and or Turbo would be better for them. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if they're lacking anything to help them move faster. But yeah, we'll build it next stream then. No, we won't. We will not. But yeah, like they're kind of stuck on Yarn right now because their whole ecosystem's based off of like their sim linking and all the Yarn stuff. But like, I'd love to see that. Like, okay, I have a wish list that's a mile long and not a feasible ask. So I'm not gonna sit here and be like, hey, Rob, David, all you awesome people that I really appreciate and respect, go build all this stuff that I feel entitled to. No, I need to go build it if I want it, and I need to go actually contribute and be a good person. I just don't have personal time right now for the next 2 weeks or so. Actually, for the next like 5 weeks. But that's just because I'm leaving the country and it'll be fun. If you build it, they will merge. If I build it, they will merge. This is true. If anybody here wants to contribute to open source, Redwood is a fantastic project. They will accept your changes. They will give you good feedback on it. And if you want some ideas that are maybe a bit, I'm going to use the word girthy here because they are a bit girthy in terms of how big the changes are. I have a list of about 10 ideas for Redwood that will keep you and anybody else busy for a very long time. So come talk to me. I will give you my ideas because I think they're good ideas that people would use. And I think Redwood would be a great place to contribute them. I don't think anybody else would accept it. I don't think Vercel would care. I don't think Remix. I think Remix would care, but I don't think they care enough at this point with everything else going on. I like the Remix guys. They're very thoughtful. So what are they talking about in the next part of this? Talking about the cell change, which I was just like, yeah, look how easy this is. And we're still just, oh yeah. They literally put a note here. See you, Jessica. Thanks for stopping by today. They literally put a note that says, hey, we're still thinking about where we're going to put services. So I really hope they move this to a new home because it just doesn't belong here. Not yet, anyway. One day. They talk about use client and all the bundling that's associated to that. I don't know if we necessarily need to talk through this, but they have the same. We have the same challenge that we have in Next.js with like use client at the top level, and you can pass a server component to a client component, but you can't use a server component in a client component. So something to keep an eye on. We're using a new file organization scheme we've developed over the years since Redwood 1.0. If a component is only used by a single parent, it goes into its parent directory. So the edit photo cell lives inside the edit photo page directory, and the edit photo success lives inside of a more generic edit photo. Wait. I agree with what I think he's saying. So like this cell belongs to this page, but there's other cells. So this cell belongs to this page. This cell belongs to that page. Is there a place that generic cells live? Have they changed that? Would it just still go in components? That's the only question I have. Single-use cells, I agree with what they're doing. This is actually what my teams are doing on their Next.js projects. Anything where it's a server component related to that page, we're just putting it co-located inside of that page. But what happens to the generic stuff? Let's see if they actually have something for this. I am interested in working on this, but that's a different conversation. We found co-locating these with the parent is a great way to stay organized. What does the community think about it? Keep our apps organized for the long-term maintenance. The top-level components directory will be used for components that are shared by 2 or more parents. Otherwise, they would go next to their parent layouts and pages directory. I agree with this. So imagine an application which page has listing products, a cell which actually fetches and displays those products, a component for adding products to the cart, and the actual button that clicks it. And this just has those cell. I think they just haven't explained that last piece enough of what happens to the shared ones, but I think this is great. I'm gonna just be a nice person to be like, let's say products cell was used on a category page as well. Would you then make the format I want to make sure I'm not saying this incorrectly and also getting all this correct. So we would want to take the product cell here. I guess all of this. Oh, no. I hate what I'm about to do. I want to leave their example alone. But I want to make another thing. Let's say you have yeah. Hey, thanks, Anthony. I appreciate the follow. Thanks for joining us today. And I'm glad you were able to hop on for a bit. Oh, and I just said your name because I was thinking it and I meant to say user. If so, I think wonderful pattern to consider. We use this in other project structures for the same reason. Redwood projects. Sorry, I just want to get that thought across. A user cell, different pages. Okay. I think that covers that. What else is here? So yeah, so this is a great way to maybe think about server components a little bit as well in this context. So you have does he have example? Okay, I guess they didn't actually build this to be one-to-one with what's here. But I think one of the things that's maybe obscured by this is this table data cell success or table data cell would probably need to get passed into the my table component from the context of example layout. Because otherwise you would have 2 distinct trees. And I think that would be weird unless they're saying this is a client. Oranges for components rendered by R. Oh, I got it backwards. That's why. There you go. So you have this page that's getting passed in to the layout that is a client render. Okay, yeah. This all makes sense. If anybody has questions, stop me. I'll answer them. But I think we are totally cooking in the world of RSC is going to be totally fine. And actually, yeah, their services are probably in Excalibur. So person who was asking about all of the drawings earlier, I bet it's all in Excalibur. Again, I'm going to be sad about this, but I think it's fine. They've got some gotchas. I think this is something that's going to prevent me from using this until they figure it out. But I have a feeling by the time they release 8.0, I will, which is if you want to run and build and serve the project, you have to keep building and serving. There's no HMR So that's a little lame. The router itself is renamed, but we need to manually add entries to the web entries file. Any route defined in router needs its own case in the switch statement. Oh, that's a little gross. That is a little gross. I kind of don't love that. That's not great. So before, this was just kind of a generated file, and now they're saying you have to go do it yourself. I'm a little sad by that, but oh well. A future release will manage this for you. Yes, it will. So I'm going to wait for this. I think this is a great preview into what they're building, but I don't think this is production ready and or developer ready. But I like where they're going with this. So Classic would do this, and in Canary, they're saying they're going to let you do the hash. Why would they do this? This feels better. In Classic Redwood app, you can update the current URL by passing replace true option as the last argument to navigate. The app will not make any new requests to the server. It will simply replaces the URL in the navigation history. Yep, I like that. In the current Canary, making this call will trigger a call to the server, which will result in your page being redrawn. In RSC, this would have resulted in the entire page going blank and then fading in again. Transitions are re-triggered. Ooh, don't love that. So every time you move an adjustment slider to prevent this, the adjustment being stored in the URL uses the hash instead of the query string. That's a good reason for it, but I wish they could do it without doing that. So this is a little sad, but I guess we can deal with it. Although components and services are rendered on the server, you do not currently have access to node environment variables. Not the best, not the worst, but they give you this stuff, which will be fine. Once they're out of once they're in ESM world, I think we will be in good shape. In the meantime, you can use path resolve, which will resolve a full file path relative to where the code is. Yep, this stuff's fine. No metadata in server components. Lets you add SEO-friendly meta tags to your page head. However, metadata uses React context internally, and context uses state. And state can only be in client code. So when adding metadata, make sure it's in a component with use client at the top. I'm curious if they're going to be able to fix this, because this feels like a big faux pas. Oh, and they don't have server actions. Yeah, until this is there, this is not ready. I know this is still a beta feature and only in Canary stuff in our friends Next.js, but like this has become a standard, and without this is a non-starter. So we'll have to figure out what that means for the future of Redwood. So very excited for Redwood, very excited for where they're heading. Fortunately, our friends have a couple things to work on. I'm going to make my laundry list. But honestly, Redwood, you're awesome. Stay awesome, my friends. Stay awesome. So, I'm going to just get that removed from my machine, just because I'm not actually going to play with it more until probably 8.0 comes out. And once we get 8.0, it'll be time to really, really start cooking and having fun. So, what are we going to do for the rest of today? If y'all remember from our last stream, we kind of ended where we did some prompt stuff. And we had some other stuff that we were doing as well. So we're going to switch back to Astro. We're going to switch back to Framework.dev for a bit. And before we get too deep into it, I made a couple commits last night, and I would just want to be transparent about kind of what I did. And so everybody's like, what? Why was this working before and now it's not working now? So the first thing I did is I went through and I fixed we did this on last stream, so it's not that one. So what we did was, okay, first thing I did is I went through and I fixed all the type issues. So y'all remember that was one of our major to-do items. If y'all remember, we've had this list going for a while. Last night, I went ahead and I just took care of these two issues, and I just fixed all the types. I had to do it by hand. It was grunt work. It was manual labor, but I didn't think anybody here actually wanted to watch what I was doing. So I saved you all the favor of doing it off stream. If you're curious what I had to do, all of this code actually is pushed up now. If you remember last time, I couldn't push this up. But now it's all pushed, and you can go look at our friend, the last two commits I did effectively, and you can see all the little one-off things that I had to do. So a lot of this was prettier. I had to change some files to Astro, but a lot of it was just going through and being like, okay, this was complaining because there's a global search that this was conflicting with, so I just changed that name. But a lot of it was just changing things to say things like type and changing where the import was from. So it was just a lot of little changes. This change right here was because the system package didn't actually have a verify step. So when it was trying to push, it couldn't actually resolve this. So I fixed that. And again, there might be an ESLint plugin for this, but it wasn't installed, and I didn't want to go through all the effort of it. So it only took me about 30 minutes to do all this, but it was a lot of just like find the thing, do it, find the thing, do it, run verify, do the thing. But now we can push again or commit without no verifying, which was a big goal of that item. The other thing we did, and this isn't showing up as well, is I went through and actually had to update how assets were being stored. And this commit is huge and has hundreds of files with images, and it's just gonna be really hard to read. But the big thing in this change was there were a few of these that pulled files from AWS that ended up including some data. And because it included that data, I had to remove it out. Otherwise I was triggering a GitHub security error on push. And so I fixed the ones that were breaking that. That being said, there's still a lot of issues. And I'm probably going to ask for help once we get through the big hurdle, which is, I also turned on the verbatim module syntax. So that was great. I still don't know why aliases were throwing an error, but they're not anymore. So we're good here. But the big thing where we're kind of having issues is images are still broken. So walking us through where we ended up, and I only got one of the websites working. The rest are still very broken, and I'll show you what the process is. If anybody wants to fork my PR and offer a commit to help, I'm more than happy to accept. But one of the things we might try to fix is some of this today. All the images across the site are broken, and it's because they're in a different format than they were before. But then there's still some images that are broken because they're not in a format that's supported by Astro. So if I go load, and you can actually see it's like, hey, I don't know how to deal with an object. I'm at a 404. So we're gonna have to look at that. But if we also go and jump over to like the Angular site, for instance, it's gonna crash. And it's because not all the files are in a format that's supported. And I had to kind of go one by one to kind of sort through this. So like if I go open up RxJS generator.json, there's actually no image here. And I don't know why there's no image here, because there is an image here. So that's interesting, but we'll have to fix that. But if we put here, let's just put it real quick. So if we put the image on this one and we say it's ./assets RxJS decision tree, and I think it was a PNG. So this one's probably fine all of a sudden. Yeah, so now we're good there. Now I have to keep restarting the server because this is one of the issues I was running into. But now it's like, hey, this Angular Nation one's broken. Okay, well, why is Angular Nation broken? And the answer is if I go look at this actual file now, so Angular Nation JPEG, in here, it's actually a broken image and it's a binary and it didn't load the actual asset. So I have to go fix those. And in some cases, if we go look at the same directory of assets here, you'll see that some of these have like this SVG XML format. This isn't compatible with what we're doing. And some of these, like this one, this ingrown one, like the HTML is not acceptable. And this is actually ng-rom. So like these are little things we're gonna have to fix over time. And so I could use help with that, but not something I'm gonna do on stream with you all, because I think that's incredibly boring and not interesting to solve. So we're just not gonna do it, simply put. So what we're gonna do today, with what time we have left together, is we're gonna go ahead and finish the CLI script that we were working on last time. And if you remember where we landed, we had this really great spreadsheet that I put together that kind of showed us that we have some default fields and then we have a bunch of sparse optional fields that are dependent upon which type of content I'm working with. And I think this is helpful, but I also think it means that we should create a new prompt kind of flow to make this work. So what we saw when we were looking at this is I can get the meta, and just to run this one more time so people kind of remember what we're doing. I think it was add entry. Yeah. So if we run yarn add entry now, that's going to run our lovely script that we wrote. And let's say, again, we're just adding an Angular one. We want to add it to, let's say, blogs. We'll just put test in here, test in there. But if you look at this, these two questions came from this metadata prompt, and the rest of these are coming from this entry data. So to the user, it doesn't matter which prompt we're using. We're just using a bunch of prompts to getting a bunch of data. And then like when we're done, it's console logging something. I guess I broke something. So let's just grab that. But as you can see, like we get all of our data still just in 2 objects instead of 1. So we could easily just merge these 2 into a single object and move forward. And I think that's what we want to do ultimately. So that's what kind of today's story is going to be, is how do we finish getting this data and then actually use the script we wrote to do all our migration work to now create these new values. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to create some functions that are just going to help us. So we're going to create a function, and it doesn't even have to be async, that says get prompts for metadata, right? And we know that our metadata object looks like this. So here's an example metadata object. So what we can do now is, so type metadata is going to be basically this, except that maybe we could be fancy. No, we can't be fancy. So we'll just say it's a string and a string, and that's what this will take. So now we have a metadata object of type metadata, which this will be helpful. And maybe we can even move our type to the top of the file. I'd be curious if we'll be able to use it, but if we could use the type metadata, say this is going to end up being type metadata, this will be great. So now we know what the shape of this will be. And for this function here, we're going to have to do some things. All of the different types don't matter by the framework. We only care about the entry of the collection. So we can have a switch statement really on metadata collection, and it's going to return, and I don't like the word return here, but it's going to return / append all the fields that we need to finish that prompt. So in our case, if we come back to what's in prompts currently, we were doing a lot of like if else logic, and I think this is the proper way to do it with this library, but I also think it's not very clean, if I'm gonna be honest. Like, this is a lot harder to read, and I think it would be great if all of the inputs and outputs kind of looked like this, as much as possible, right? We won't be able to do all of it, and we actually will, as it turns out. We are going to need some stuff, so we can grab these fields here, and this is our entry data, but this could also just be our canonical shared entry data. And that's something I hadn't considered until literally right this second. And I kind of like this. So we're going to leave this part alone, but then we're going to get the additional entry data. So there's entry data and there's additional entry data. I like this because it'll be a little simpler. So additional entry data is going to be another prompt, but in this case, it's going to get prompts for the metadata in question. And in this case, we'll pass in the metadata and hope for the best. We'll need to implement this still, and we'll need to make sure that this is properly implemented all the way through. So let's go ahead and save it, and let's do just some quick testing here. First, we want to make sure that, again, we don't care which one we're doing, but let's do books, blogs, courses, podcasts. So if we do books, we get, what is the URL for this resource? So in this case, it skipped both questions. And I don't like that. So that means we got a bug, and it could be the fact that I might have mistyped something. Could be. I don't know. We'll find out in a second. Let's actually restart. Let's see what happened here. So if we console log our values here and restart the script one more time, what we're going to find is it's an empty object, because this is relying on the previous values, but because we have now moved this to a different prompt entirely, we're going to have to just change our behavior. So this is not going to work. So the additional thing that I was about to do, we're actually going to skip that. It's not going to matter. We're just going to need to get all of our prompts, and that's okay. We learned. So what we can do here is we can actually set a constant, which is going to be default prompts. And this is actually a constant for us because we know what the default prompts are, which are going to be all of these. Now, the only one that's going to be dynamic here are going to be the types for each of these. So we're going to remove this bit for now. Yeah, we're going to remove this bit for now. And I guess so we're actually going to have to do quite a few things now that I'm looking at it. So let's grab the whole object. We'll grab the whole object, and we're going to move it to be the first thing inside of our new function here. And default prompts is mad because it's never used, but then get tags by type is mad because metadata is mad because it needs to be able to be assignable to collection types. So if I try to pull in, I'm actually curious, can I get collection types? Collection types. Let's see if this plays nice. If this plays nice, that would be really cool. So we could still run our script, and we get collection types, and framework needs to be of type frameworks. So we can do that. And if things still work, we're still good. So now we have our metadata object looking real nice and typed, feeling good about that. I will say something's bugging me though. We need to go change two things. We're going to turn on semicolons, and we're going to make it tabs, and we're going to make it single quote. And I'm okay with all of that. We're going to just format everything real quick because it's actually been driving me nuts that I can't get my semicolons. But this is mad about something else, and we're going to ignore the plop handlebar bit for now if we can. So I did a bad, but we're doing a bad because it was driving me bonkers. So let's go ahead and add all of these files. All of these files to our system. The one thing I want to check though before we move on is in site there might be some files I don't actually want to check in yet because I was doing something else and I might have, yeah, right here. I was mixing and doing some other stuff and I don't want to actually check that in yet. We're going to remove that. Just check on these super quick. And everything else looks good. Enable semicolon and prettier and format. That was just driving me absolutely bonkers. So we're going to just do that. Hopefully it works. Uh-oh, why didn't it work? What was mad? So it failed because source does not exist on type string. This is the thing I was working on and I never finished last night. So we're going to have to, unfortunately, no verify past it. But if you're curious what it's mad about, is inside of some of these files. Oh, actually, did I just mess up? I might have just messed up. I totally messed up. So I wasn't supposed to check in these files. So we're going to quickly do an undo. And then I'll show you what that undo just did. Because I like my commits to be clean. I want them to be clear what I'm doing. And because I'm making such a drastic change to things, I just want to be kind of careful with how I'm approaching the problem. So we're going to grab those files and we're just going to amend the undo on it. And that should be okay. Just confirming I did exactly what I expect. So what, I don't know if I still have it open. I probably closed it. Well, I'll show you real quick before I commit, or I'll show you after I commit. Let me go ahead and fix the issue. While that's happening, we can, that's just going to fail. Well, let me just do the undo there. That way it's not there. Great. What was happening with those changes is I actually, when I showed you like all of these were broken, that wasn't entirely true. So if I go to the podcast card, for instance, we can close this. You'll see that there's an image here. If I change this to image.source like this, and I refresh, you'll see that if I go to that was the podcast, right? I might have just gotten a bad set. These should have been, some of these should have been fixed. Oh, on this page, they're fixed. So if I, yeah, it's not the same on both pages. So if I look here, they're broken. But if I look here, once I do that, they're fixed. So this is going to be our quick fix when we get there. But we're trying to avoid doing that right this minute. Just because we're one thing at a time. My ADD sometimes kicks in and I get distracted. So let's try to not get distracted for a minute. So we're going to do the get prompts for metadata. We're going to change all of this now that says get prompts for metadata. We haven't really said what the return type is. which we'll need to fix. Really, it's whatever prompts takes in. And I don't know if prompts has a... I don't know if well, I guess prompts returns an object. So I don't know if prompts has an input type necessarily. So let's just trust that this works, and we'll carry on for now. So I'm going to take out these first two, the title and the name, because these aren't actually the default prompts. The only default prompts, and we're going to keep them because we're going to do something with them in a second, but the only default prompts are going to be all of the words are going to be the values that we decided were. So description, ref, tags, and image. So ref, description, the image, and then this is going to be the tags. And this is probably not working right now. I'm also going to make it so we do the text and the image first, because I think those are probably the easiest two for most people to figure out. Description is going to take a little longer, and tags are going to take longer than that. But we're trying to guide people as smart as possible. Oh, this is actually now a problem that we have identified. So I made an assumption before that somebody might want to add the same resource to multiple sites. And so what we did is we said, hey, you can make this a multi-select and not just an autocomplete. And looking at it now through the guise of this, our function here actually returns only one set of tags for one site because the sites don't share. So now we have this problem where we have multiple sites trying to use the same tag. And that's not going to work. So we got to fix that. So this isn't going to work, meaning we have to change this. So instead of multi-select, we got to go back to autocomplete, and our metadata is only going to be a singular framework, not plural. And so that's going to return one of these. We don't need a hint or the min because now we're using the default behavior, and that is going to make it so this plays nice all of a sudden. And so if we come back to here, and we can make this a little bigger. I don't know why I made it so small. If we run our script now, what we should see is, since we're playing with the Node.js site, we're going to see Node.js, we're going to see blogs, and we're very happy with that. And this is going to be totally fine by us. So all of this is working now. We're missing some stuff still, but these default prompts are totally okay. Now, the property replace all does not exist on type screen. Do you need to change your target library? Try changing the lib compiler option to ES 2020 or later. So what is our TS config? ES next, ES next. So this is fine. Why? Where did I even get this from? This looks like code I copied. This is the titleize function I found online. We're going to ignore this for now. This should be fine, but this is what we're dealing with. So we'll come back to this. I don't know why replace all isn't here though, because this is totally what I would expect it to be. We're going to put it to do. We'll maybe actually pull in the titleize library for this because we want it to be nicer. We're not going to require any tagging on it though. So we're good with this. Now, we have two cases now that we have to deal with. So we have our default prompts, and we're good with that. This is going to be the label prompt. And this is going to be either this one or this one. So we're going to say we're going to make another function, just get label prompt with the metadata. And we're going to grab this part here, come down a bit, function get label prompt. And we're going to just say, and we don't even need the metadata. We just need the metadata collection, right? And so this is going to take in collection type, which is of type collection types. And we're going to just more or less return this code. So we're going to say, if we're in this case, and we're actually going to borrow that almost verbatim. If we're here, and I think that's almost right. It's almost right. It's actually going to be these two values right here. Copilot, you are smart. Unfortunately, not smart enough sometimes. And then I think the other case we're going to have, so now we can delete that, is we're going to have this case right here, which is going to take in this value here. And then we're going to put that. And then for this one, it's just going to be text. They're both type text. The thing that's changing is it name or is it title? And you know what? We could be a little wittier here. This is a clean code conversation, and different people are going to have different opinions on this one. I'm going to keep it this way because it's just going to make this a little easier to read and use. New error, new label prompt found for collection type. Yeah. So we're going to bomb out if we don't find it, and we're okay with that. And label prompt is going to be this. So something we've just kind of done is our eventual return type is going to be the default prompts with the label prompt. And actually label prompt can just be in line like this. This is going to be our ultimate return type. Now, this isn't perfect, and it's not perfect because we're still lacking all the other fields that we're going to need. But if we run through our entry again, also, I realized that the music cut off a while ago. Let's go see what happened there. Maybe I just didn't. Yes, we want to continue watching the Heartbound stuff. I might have hit a pause button on accident. Oh, that just sounded like Zelda. It was like the do just like the championship noise, like we won, but we haven't won yet. Music, like, know what our intentions are. So yeah, now we have a title, now we have a URL description. We still have an issue with our tags, so we're gonna have to fix that. So let's go and fix our tags because that's bugged at this point, but everything else is good about it. So this is going to return what we need this to return. If we come back to this, is it's going to be a title and a value. And what this is giving us right now is this is just going to give us a list of values. And so what I did is I tried to map over it, and it's trying to be an array of tag and value. So it's trying to match this. So why is this not working is the better question, because this should have worked. And now I'm concerned because this should work. So let's go ahead and log it out. And because it's possibly going to be a messier situation, let's just make it longer. And let's just add an entry. And we can just go Angular blogs, and we get Bupkis. Why do we get Bupkis? So let's look at metadata collection, metadata framework, and see what actually is getting passed into this thing. Maybe it's not behaving the way I thought. So this is interesting. We see blogs, we see Angular. We're happy with that. That's blogs, that's Angular. If we go to our get tags, tags takes in blogs, Angular. So when we call this method right here, what are we getting? Oh, and it's also possible that, now that I'm thinking about it, this is the one empty target. Yeah, blogs don't have tags because I don't know why. I actually have no idea why the blog model has never had tags. It should have tags, and I have never understood why this list was empty. Tags, like here's my util. These are library tags, and I feel like there should have been a blog tags concept somewhere. This is disappointing, but okay. We're gonna move on, and we're gonna try a different type that actually has tags. That looks better. And that looks better. So we are happy with this. This is actually what it should be. What the problem is we need to put an if on this. So what we actually need to do is tags. And this is actually going to be available tags. And what we want to do is, if we have available tags, do this. Otherwise, don't. Now, the problem is going to be, because of our types and how things work, this is always going to be just truthy by default. And so we need to deal with the case now where these are both blank. And the way we can do that is we can just add a filter. So if the tag is empty string, keep it if it's not the empty string. Otherwise, do the rest. So if we do this now, Angular blogs, and if I actually would have console logged what we were looking at, because that's what I should have done the whole time, we get the empty array. This is what we want. So now what we can do is go back to that logic that was here before. So we go back to the prompts, because I totally forgot how this works now. There's conditional dynamic prompts. So you could do a dynamic prompt. So type is a function, and you could just work with it. So in our case, tags is type multi-select, but in its functional, it'll be available tags.length is greater than 0, multi-select, otherwise don't render. So if we play this game now, also this soundtrack is baller. I love it. All right. We don't get tags anymore. There are no tags. We are happy with this. Tags being empty, we can deal with, and we'll have to deal with it as we are dealing with the blog type. We also maybe want to fix that long term, but for now, rock solid. We're moving forward. So our default prompts are good. We're not going to make it a constant anymore, though. And the reason it's not, or at least not a capital constant, because it's derived. I'm a big believer that if it's derived, you don't do what I did. Capitals, if it will never change no matter what you do. So we're good on our default prompts, and we're very happy with that. And eventually, in our default switch case, is going to be to return what I just showed you, right? Because that's what all of them have in common. Now what we can do is use our lovely truth table that we built before to decide what's going to show up. So let's go one type at a time. So let's just do blogs. Okay. So first case here is blogs. So if it is a blog, what we want to do is we want to return this, but then we're going to add another set of options right here. And it's only one set of options actually, which is going to be type is going to be text, author, and then who is the author of this blog. I think that is spanking gorgeous. That's exactly what we wanted. And now we can look and see like author's good. This works. We can make this work. Now we could also be fancy here and say for any of these that have 2 or more instances, which there's only 3 of them, we can just make a default type for this. I think that's totally fine because these are kind of constants. So what we do up here is now above this. So this is a constant. This is the author prompt. And now for real this time, we're going to use the uppercase because this is what I would consider a constant. This isn't going to change. This is not dynamic. This just works. And so here, this will be label prompt, author prompt, default prompts. So when we go through this again, assuming I did everything correctly, except we want to change the order one more time. So if we go through and we say Angular blogs, title, URL, resource, who is the author, blah. Now we have all the data we were hoping for. We could see that the tags aren't going. If we go through the same process now and we do the same thing with books, what we'll see this time is when we get to that last step, we'll actually be able to pick some, and then we'll see that there was no author. So this 10 out of 10. We're winning. Everything's working. I'm a happy human. So now we can move on to our next one. So let us do books. Books has authors, years of publication, and number of pages, and level. Those are going to be our 4 that we need to add. So we're going to make books. And we're going to do not the same. And we're going to work on it this way. So first one's going to be authors. Year of publication. Always give credit where credit is due. That's what I say. And there's the level. Now, level, we're actually going to make a default prompt, like we said. But let's talk about what authors and authors is. So if we go open up a books collection. Oh, hey, it's Roy. I like Roy. We set this as an array. So it's going to be an array of strings. So that's going to be something we need to figure out real quick. How do we get an array of strings for authors? So let's go to prompts again and see if there's a way to get to generate an array out of the prompt options. So if we need, where are the prompt types? Prompt types. Here we go. We could get text. We could get invisible, number, confirm. None of those. List. What does a list do? Enter keywords. Similar to the text prompt, but the output is an array containing the string separated by separator. Well, this is what we want. This is exactly what we want, because this is what I was going to tell somebody to do. Is we're going to do something like, I mean, this is what we wanted. So if we paste this here, so it's going to be a list. The name or the value here is going to be authors. And then what we can do is who are the book authors. Please use a comma to separate multiple authors. Who is the book author? And if it is multiple authors, we could do it that way. I'm okay with that. All right, we'll have to test that, but that seems reasonable to me. Let's go look at our publication example again. And let's just have this on the side. So publication is going to be a number. Number of pages is going to be a number. So let's go get the number. Types. Oh, here we go. Number type. We're good with the number type. Now, I think what's going to be interesting on this one is, are either of these actually used anywhere in the code base outside of the pages? And yes, it is used on the card. And year of publication also, is it used outside? And sure enough, it is. Okay, we're happy with that. That's what we wanted to confirm. Like, if the data is not used, why are we persisting it? There's a whole conversation about that. But like in this case, year of publication, name, how old are you? How old? I mean, this isn't what we're going to say is, what year was this book published? Right? I guess a default style is fine. We really don't want an initial min or max though. I wonder if we have to provide those. I'm going to try not providing those because I would like to do this twice without providing them. I forgot to grab the value here. How many pages are in the book? I always like to know that, like, kind of price per page. Some people do that. I'm one of those people. Am I wrong for doing it? Probably. But let's try this. So let's add an entry. Let's go to Angular. Let's go to books, test. We can just say it's an NX book. And we could say A, B, and C wrote the book. 1999 because that was a great year. 1 page because we suck. I'm good with this. That looks great. Now, I'm curious what happens if somebody enters a non... Okay, it will allow that, and that's a problem. So we need to figure out some validation. At the same time, like, this is meant to guide people, so I want to make validation better, but I'm also not going to block our effort today on making validation work. Now, let's talk about this level one. Level here. So level's in 2 places. If we come back to our lovely spreadsheet, we have level twice. One is in books, one is in courses. Are they the same? So if we look at our config, if we look at books, books says it's one of these 3 values. And courses says it's the same, hopefully the same 3 values. If we do this, yeah, same 3 values on both. This is great. We can have an enum here now. And that could be our level type, and it's the same for both. So what we're going to do is it's going to be, it doesn't even need to be an autocomplete. I wonder if, does prompts give me the option of just like a list type instead of an autocomplete? Or is it always an autocomplete type? It's okay if it's an autocomplete type. No, it's just yeah, we just need a pick. Cool. So let's just pick. So const is a level prompt. And I had most of what I needed on the clipboard already. All right, so let's see what we want. Did they actually? Okay, they didn't color code it. I was like, did they color code it? That would be really neat. No, they didn't. So what we'll need is, it's a select. The value is going to be level. And it's going to be what level of difficulty is this resource? I think that's a reasonable name. And then we have these three values. So it's going to be, we're not going to put a description on any of them because it's not, I don't think it's valuable. But this can be beginner. This one can be intermediate. We don't need this disabled state. And then this one could be advanced. And then all of these can just be the titleized versions. We're not going to pick a value because we don't have a default value. It's you must pick. So let's go that way. And done. So now we can just grab our level prompt here, stick it in at the end. And now when we run through the prompt this time, what are we doing? We're going to go Angular, books, test, grab some stuff, just T, 1, and now we have a pick list. Let's say intermediate. And great, we get all the values we need, and we can actually make a book now. So this is feeling real good because now we can like make things kind of readable to work, and we can keep going through our different types here. So our next collection type here is going to be, we're gonna have to make these now. So let's go ahead and just get our cases set up because I'm gonna be that guy. I'm just gonna paste for a second. So case is gonna be communities. Case is going to be courses. Case is going to be libraries. Case is podcasts. Case is tools. All right, so these are all the things we're going to need. This indentation, on the other hand, there we go. And now what we could do is, like before, we just keep borrowing our label and our prompts. And these are going to be the defaults. And I guess what I'm realizing now is our default prompt here is getting a little messy, so to speak. What we can do here is we can actually change the default prompt now to include the one that I had excluded before. We can get rid of the label prompt here, and then everything can just be now just the default prompts. We can just simplify this. There's no reason to do it the way I had it before, other than me just not thinking, and I'm okay with that. All right, we're on communities now. What does communities need? It needs this dark background image. Okay, so we need this one, and we need type, and that's it. It's only got 2. So this one's going to be easier for us to build. So we go back to kind of how books was built, or how any of them are built. Now we could just do to our, now, if we remember though, dark background is a Boolean, I believe. So if we go to our config one more time, if we go to courses, we can find payment type's also going to be here, but we're on communities, so on the wrong one. So this is a Boolean and it's optional. So that's going to be important, this optional piece especially. Just seeing if I'm missing anything obvious. I said it was that and type. Type's a string, and we don't really know what type's going to be. Now, a better question is, what are the types on a community? So if I go for a community, so type isn't specified, but I have a feeling if I were to go through all these JSON files and look at all the different types, we'd find some level of consistency here. It's like we have live events, Discord community, Reddit, live events. I wonder if we could make all of our types here fit into a single set and actually force our hand a little bit here. Because I think type here should be an enum. So I'm gonna force the issue. We're gonna say live events is an option. We saw online events. What else did we see? We see Discord community. That's a good one. And maybe we'll alphabetize this LMNO. Yes, I have to spell like that still. I'm sure everybody has their own trick. I think, you know, you do what you got to do. And what you got to do is what you got to do. So live events, Discord community. Okay. Reddit's going to be a thing. Live events and online events. Okay. That's a good one. Front stage is live events. Oh, and I just stored them in a bad place. So let's not put those there. This is not where they belong. We can move our config over here though, and we can put them right here. And we'll take care of that in a minute. But now we can go back, front stage, live events, live and online, live. It's probably going to be a lot of live. And I think what's going to be interesting is we're going to just need to make these consistent over time. And that's okay. Consistency is going to be good for us. And having this is going to force our hand. I saw online events in that last one and this one. So I think we're starting to move into we have what we need. And that's really fabulous, y'all. Okay, so there's just one called online. Let's cover that. And we may need to give a description of what these mean eventually, but I think for now, let's assume that was a pretty comprehensive set of what this enum is going to be. And what we might end up finding later down the line is we didn't cover them all when we go do some testing. The good news is we can fix that. And the good news is we could borrow this value now that we have it. Alphabetically, I think that's correct. Or we can cheat. Sort line descending. There you go. Now it's alphabetical. Apparently, I didn't know what I was doing. But we can also borrow this now, and this is now our type. So we'll use this to define type in a minute. And this is kind of handy because it's both the value and the title. So that's kind of great. Dark background image, on the other hand, this is going to be another one of our lovely defaults. So let's go and put this here. And how do we want to do this? It's going to be dark image background. And we'll want to relearn what this variable means, but for now, it's fine. We're fine. So this is a Boolean. What does this thing do for Booleans? We just want a yes, no Boolean. What does a confirm do? I'm guessing that's close. Confirm is your classic yes, no prompt. Yeah, we could go with that. So we'll use this one. Can confirm. Can confirm. So in this case, we're going to want this to be confirm. Does the image... Honestly, this is the image in SVG. That's really what this question is. I can almost guarantee it. If we look at every single instance where this is used, SVG, 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 we probably don't even need this property. Honestly, we could derive this. I'm not going to, because that's just a backwards compatibility thing that I just need to deal with later. But right now, this is just, okay, no, I was in the right place. Is the image an SVG that supports a dark mode switcher? That's effectively what this is right now. So let's talk about that. That's easy enough. And then that's our message. And then for initial, it's always false. And the order of this is going to be a little awkward, but it's fine for now because of other reasons. But if we come into courses now, or not courses, into our default prompt, we can run the dark background prompt, and then we can add one more prompt, which is going to be, what type of community is this? And for type, we're going to use the select option that we had before. So we had a select prompt. We're going to use this again. It's the same format. So we can borrow this technique, and putting things in the wrong place because I'm getting a little lost as I go, but this is fine. So this is going to be type, and it's like, what type of community is this, right? And in our case, the values are just going to be the string. Keep it simple. Nothing complicated. I wonder if this supports just value for the select. So let's look at the choices. Array of strings or choice objects. Oh, we should be able to just pass this in and it just work. That's what this says. Yes, that should just work. We're gonna get rid of that for a second. And this should be a return statement. So if we go and run our friend now and we try to do a new Angular community, is it a meetup or a conference? Let's say it's a meetup. Is the SVG, is the image support? Say yes. And yeah, that worked perfectly, except that it returned type 0. Damn, not what I wanted. It's okay though. What we're gonna do is, oh man, I really just wanna duplicate this. Let's see how fancy I can get. So if we go here and do that, and then, oh, I was so close, so close. Hold on, we can do better. So this is the value. If we do that, let's try this now. I'm curious if I just give it a value, if it plays nice. If it doesn't, not a big deal. Man, that was just so easy. Why didn't we do that the whole time? Okay, well, here we go. So we've got our views, we've got our choices, we've got our communities working. Ain't that awesome? Time to do courses. And this is just gonna keep getting cool. Like, we're gonna keep getting the data we need in the way we need it. So if we're on courses now, courses, the new one is, we'll have the author prompt again, the level prompt again, payment type, format. Okay, well, we know how to do author, type, payment, and format. We've done several of these before, actually, so we don't need to do the author again. And we type, payment, format. Type's wrong. It should, I should have grabbed level. So we could do the author prompt, the level prompt, because this is why we made things reproducible. We're going to go grab our select again because I'm a little lazy. Just a little, though. And this is going to be, we're going to do the next one, which is the payment type. So this is going to be select, type, payment type. If we go look at our config again, if we look for our course, it's going to be free or paid, right? That's it. Those are our options. So what is this course free or paid? Very simple. Very simple A/B question. Maybe there's a third option that we haven't ever considered and we'll need to deal with it later. But for right now, it's either free or it's paid. And I need to make sure that I spell things as they are intended to be stored. Otherwise, we will have problems later. So super simple. And then format. Let's see what format looks like. Format looks like it's also going to be a pick list of text, interactive, or video. And I don't know about y'all, but I love the different styles of learning, like kinesthetic and all that. Like that is what this is effectively trying to do, is support all different people. Like I am a interactive person. Like for me, learning, I need to do it interactively. It's actually interesting. Everybody has their own learning style. You're either a visual, an auditory, or a kinesthetic learner. That's kind of the buckets people would be in. Now, you're not exclusively one or the other. You can have a mixture of things. For me, I'm something like 80% interactive, 20% read. Video does nothing for me because it's mostly auditory, and I'm not an auditory learner. Like I do meetings, I talk to people, I have to do this, and I have to be good at this, but this is not my strength. My strength lies in the other two. And I think that's just like something to learn about yourself and something that'll help you succeed in life if you understand how do you absorb content best. And then communicating that to people who are trying to help you succeed in life or are there with the intention of helping you succeed in life will help you succeed in life. So that is just a strong recommendation, a very strong recommendation for me. All right, we're going to keep going. So we're on format. Is that the one? I kind of deleted it and I wasn't thinking. Yeah, this is going to be format. And format is going to be what format is the course in? And then this is just going to be, is it text? Is it interactive? Or is it a video? That's for us to find out later. But now we have that. And now we have a working courses in theory. Let's check out courses. See how it goes. Go here, courses. Author, intermediate, paid, interactive. Hey, that all worked. That's exactly what we wanted it to do. I'm very happy about this. All right, next up. And this is just going to keep going. Now we're on libraries. So libraries is this row. Libraries has 3: repo, package, language. Those are the only 3 unique ones. And these are unique because there's a lot we do with these. Now, if I go to our config and I look at it. Oh. What? Why? I must have not marked this. Okay, dark image background. I see that. And language. Wait, no, I did language. I'm sorry. So it's these. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. We're actually good now. So we need these 4 and we need to figure out how to do them. Now, good news is we have one of them, which I think we did in communities. So if we get rid of that dark image background, we're good. Now we need to do 2 more text fields, and we'll go ahead and just grab our example text field. And we're going to stick this one in. It's repo, package. So this one could be repo. This can be package. And this one can be language, because that's what we're going to need to build here. Because this is going to be a choice list based off of this choice list right here. And what we've learned is we can do this better. So I went ahead and did it this way because I think it'll be better if I do it this way. So if I go to the beginning of my lines, and if we just cover the whole thing, put a comma, go to the beginning of our line, write value, and pretend like we didn't royally mess something up, we would be good. But we royally messed something up. What did we royally mess up? Why is this bad? Prettier is upset because I forgot commas. Prettier's mad because I didn't comma. Okay. What language? Actually, here's a question. Is this a pick list or is it a single language? No, it's for single language. What language is this library for? Now, it could be multiple languages for some of these, but generally speaking, it's going to be one. I think that's why we have the unknown type here. And that's okay. We're gonna go this way. Now, I'm curious what a library looks like. Libraries. Yeah, here we go. Let's look at what next looks like. So, main reason I'm looking at this is because I'm not sure what repo or package were. And in this case, repo is going to be the Git repo and the package is going to be its listing on npm. That makes sense. I think the reason we call it this, though, is because if you go to Dino and you go to a library in Dino doesn't have an npm equivalent. So I think this is to cover that. So that's something we'll just need to look at later. But that's okay. We can work on this. So repo is going to be, what is the URL for the repository containing this library? What is the public listing URL for this repo on its package manager? So this would be like the npm.js, and this, and we could even put that here. So like, we'll use Next.js as our example here, just because we should have example. So e.g., boom, right? And then we could do the same here. And you know what? Why am I doing this way? We have an Astro JSON. This is an Astro project. We can use Astro. Let's respect the library we're using. Built in Astro, not built in Next. So yeah, we're gonna do it this way because I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. All right. So if we go to libraries now, when we get through libraries, cool, and cool. That looks great. Most of we're going to set a default here though. I'm actually curious what happens if I can do an initial, if I set initial to JavaScript. I'm curious what happens. Main reason I'm going for this initial one on JavaScript at the end is because, and I actually should have been paying attention to what I was clicking. With this project, most people are going to default to JavaScript. At least that's my guess. Initial index of default value. Oh, 1, 2, 3, wait, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, initial is 6. I bugged it out because I'm a bad person. So started at 6. So yeah, this is something we need. So communities, no, we're on libraries. Cool. Yeah, so it starts at JavaScript and then you can move up and down. That looks fantastic. So we're one step ahead. What is next, my friends? What is next? Next is going to be podcasts. What's new about podcasts? Podcasts has hosts and an RSS. That's it. Just 2. All right. Let's figure out what hosts and RSS are. So if we look in our config and we go down to our podcast, host is going to be like authors, and RSS is going to be an optional URL. So why don't we go find where we did authors before, which was in books, and just borrow it because I think that would be fantastic. So this is going to be our default prompts followed by list, and this is going to be host. Who is the host of the podcast? Please use a comma separated list to separate multiple hosts. That works. And if there's multiple, there's multiple, and we're good with that. And the other one we're going to use, and we can just go borrow the package one because it's just a text type. And we just say, this is RSS. What is the RSS feed URL for this podcast? And let's go actually find a podcast example. We're going to do Modern Web. See if they have an RSS. And they do. So we're going to borrow theirs. We're just going to borrow Modern Webs because this project is sponsored by this dot, and the Modern Web podcast is typically sponsored by this dot. So why don't we give them a shout? It's a great podcast. Shameless plug. I have hosted it a few times in the past. Tracy and Rob say wonderful things. Adam and Ben try to. And yeah, you should go enjoy the show. There's a lot of great talks. All right. So we have podcasts. We need to return our podcasts. Otherwise, this isn't going to do anything. Making sure I haven't missed a return yet. Now we're on to our last one, which is tools. And then we can actually get to the fun stuff. Tools only does author. This is great. So we can actually, it's the same as blogs. So we can actually make tools and blog the exact same. We don't have to change it. We don't have to do that. We can abuse case statements. There's an ESLint rule that prevents you from doing this, and I think it's a terrible rule, and I'm glad that I'm able to do it this way. So we've got our label prompt. We have got the prompt for the metadata. We have these lovely constants that enable these functions to be written the way they are. And this is basically our main function. And I think now that I've turned off some stuff, see, now this reads really nice, and I appreciate this for what it is. Semicolons make things more readable. And like we've seen kind of every time so far, just to give some examples, we're going to have all the data we want for each of our types now. And now we can actually create JSON objects and do fun stuff. So we don't need this anymore. That was a placeholder. We've got our console log doing what it's needing to do, which is telling us, hey, we have two things. Now we can write our fun script. So we have effectively done this before. And that's what's really, really nice is all of this code that I wrote long, long ago in a stream of past, we can actually steal everything and reuse it. And that's really awesome. So what do we have to do here? So data packs and collection type, like this is stuff we were doing before. And there was some titleization stuff that we were doing. This stuff is still valid, but not in the way that it's being used here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to borrow the collection types one, because this is just going to give us a const and a thing that we need. And we're going to make a new get file name. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to write a new function down here. Function get file name. And this is going to have to take in two things. It's going to need our metadata and it's going to need our entry data. It's going to need both. And I don't know if it just did that correctly, but if it did, go us. Libraries, podcasts is title. The default case is title tools. Tools is name though. So this one was close, but tools can come to libraries. So libraries and tools use the same case. So name, title, title. Let's just go through this and make sure each one's right. Okay, so blogs is going to be title lowercase. Okay, blog is good. Blog is title lowercase, which means anything that's title lowercase can go this way. So title lowercase is only podcasts. So podcasts and blogs use the same rule. So we're good there. Libraries and tools use the same thing. Books uses something unique. It takes the title to lowercase and the authors joined on a space to lowercase. So this is also good. So books is good now. Communities is the item name to lowercase. And we called it entry data name to lowercase, which is going to be the same as libraries and tools. Yeah, so that's great. So we can make all of these the same now. Get rid of this line. And then courses is going to be title lowercase, author lowercase. And courses looks good now. So this is like a really handy situation where we have a bunch of things that are the same and a few things that are different. And the things that are the same and the things that are different are useful. So we're going to grab kebab from Lodash because we're borrowing kebab from Lodash. And now our function here is very happy. Now entry data hasn't been defined, and entry data honestly is going to be a little wonky to define, and I don't really want to spend time defining it today. But effectively it's going to be, and it's interesting, it's not the result of this, it's whatever this is ending up being, which is going to be, depending on the type, it's going to be one of many types, which actually, if we can go into our content collection config and actually find those types, I bet you like this is going to be really close. It's really close. It's not right, but it's really close. So if I go to the index page of the whole site where I actually pulled in the collection, no, it pulled that from that. If we get the collection entry, no, it's not that one, but there should be another one of these lying around, and maybe we can find that real quick, because that would be our fast win to what I'm trying to do. So this type. Yeah, so now we're getting closer. Now we're getting much closer. So this type here is ultimately what we're going to try and do, because it's going to be a collection entry from this array. And so what I want, what do I want? Resolve an array of entry references from the same collection. Close. There's references here. Data entry map. It's probably not this object. At the same time, it's very close to this object. I guess this is... What does infer schema do? Takes... yeah, it's converting these Zod types, which... It's a little gross, and it's not, I mean, it's what we want, but not how we want it. So I'm going to go with the any for now. I'm going to flag that I recognize that this is a faux pas and not something I should be doing. But it's also something I know, like, hey, I got to do this for now. And that's okay, because I just want to get this working. I don't want to spend an hour writing types. So all of what we just wrote here is now going to effectively replace the file name function, which eventually was getting used down here. And so this is where it gets interesting. So this was setting up all of the different places where we might need to put our thing. And now where we are is this was going through and reading all of those JSON files. And eventually it was finding those things, getting the file name and writing. We're just going to end up doing this chunk of code right here. This is ultimately our new function. Now, the store and get image path, that's going to be something new. That's something we need to deal with, and that's okay. So what we're going to do here is we get the file name, and we know how to get the file name, and we get the path name. And the path name here is now going to be, in our case, metadata. And this was the pack. And pack in this case was the framework. And this is the collection. So that's going to be the naming convention for the path. And the file name is going to be get file name with the metadata and the entry. And now we get our file name. Now we're happy. And now we got to do some imports that I haven't done yet. And frankly, we'll just pull all of these in because we're going to need all of these eventually. And I'm going to kind of go this way with it. I like imports to be internals to the language, followed by actual third-party scripts, followed by my scripts. Personal preference, there's no reason to actually do this, but I find it helps me stay a little organized on my imports. So I have my file name, all this lovely stuff. So now I can get my file name. I can create my file name.json, and now I can stringify the data. This is great. So what we're going to do here is we don't need any of the metadata. It's actually just stringifying our entry data. And that's really cool. So this just becomes entry data. But all of these, if you remember, in our default prompt, get prompts, in our default prompt, we asked for an image, which gets a URL, and it's going to try and grab that image. We don't want to store that image verbatim. We want to actually store a new version of it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to call await on store image and get the path for the entry data image on the path name and the file name that we had. Because the reason we didn't combine these two is the path name is slightly unique here compared to this one, because what it's going to be is going to be this path / assets, and the file name is going to be distinct, and that's going to be the same, except it's going to get tagged with whatever file type it is. So if we come now over back to our function where we did all of our scripting before, and we grab our last function here. This is why you write scripts for things, because you might use them later. Let's reread what we were doing. So if we're in a base64 encoded image, we're going to store the file as a PNG in the destination under assets. Everything's good, and we're going to return ./assets with the destination file name. We're happy. We're going to delete this stuff because we're not using it. Next is we're going to look at type. We're going to get the source image path. Again, we're passing that in. And here, we can make this bigger so we can see everything. So if we get a content type, if we get this and it's not null, and I guess it's complaining about that. So if it is not of type image, we'll throw a warning. And before we threw a warning, because this is a thing, now we need to throw a new error. And the reason we need to throw an error now is because we won't be able to get the image, we won't be able to do things, and we want to crash this person out. They need to find a better image for us. And now what we can do is, otherwise we'll get the file type out of here, which, Again, this should be, well, it should be, here's what we can do. It could be this and, no, or. If we have this and it's not image, do that. Okay, I guess what we can do. I'm actually curious why this is complaining this could be null. Because this is it because there's not an explicit Boolean check right here? Okay, here's what we can do though. We can make this a content type. Set this to that. And now we can replace all 3 instances of this with content type because it's literally the same piece of code and now TypeScript can do its job. I don't know why it was so repetitive before. Maybe I copied and pasted or let Copilot do things, but that's how life goes. Okay, so here's our content type, happy. And now we're doing a write stream. And on our write stream, we're saying take the asset, the destination, the file type, and do all that. And then it's saying, okay, this is just saying, we just need to check on this. If we have a response body, do that. No? Why are you mad? Argument of is not assignable to parameter type readable string any type readable U8 is missing the following properties from readable any values. I don't actually, okay. Let's ask Copilot. Copilot, how would you fix this? As readable, still unhappy? Nope, that didn't work, Copilot. Try again. Try again. That is what I tried. It didn't play super well. All right, we're going to discard it. We're just going to move on. Argument of readable U18 or null is not assigned. Okay. It's basically, I guess it would be if body does not equal null. Do that, right? No? File body is response.body. And then if file body, do file body. There's no reason it's not this, right? Right? There's no reason this would fail all of a sudden. Or null. It's not assignable to any. Is missing the following properties from readable. Yeah, it's still mad. I don't know why. Okay, we're just going to leave it alone because it's not doing us much good and it's a TypeScript error and I don't want to deal with it right now. We can get rid of all of this commented code and then just return the final bits. And with all this, we should be working now. And I'm very happy with this. I'm very happy with this. So, actually, we're gonna do a bad. We're just gonna expect. Oh, what? This definitely works, but there's no type for it. Sure. We're just gonna be bad and say that. So we've done this. We've done this. This is gonna fail. So we'll talk about that in a second. Let's actually go find one of these SVG plus XML files that's super duper broken. Because I want to fix it. Oh, and I love which project we ended up getting. If you all don't know Lumberjack my dear friend Nacho Vasquez is one of the contributors to this and works hard on this, and I adore him as a human, and I'm super happy that I accidentally pulled his thing, because I think he's an awesome person. Okay. Oh, except I'm gonna go to Node instead, and I'm sorry, Nacho. I'm sorry. I need to do one in Node because I know all the other ones are broken except for Node. So let's borrow Socket.io and do this one right. Sorry, y'all. I said the wrong thing. Also, is this true that Guillermo wrote this one? I'm genuinely I did not know Guillermo wrote Socket.io. If this is true, I'm absolutely floored and blown away. The man who owns, well, not owns, but runs Vercel is the same man that manages. Wow, it is him. That's amazing. I didn't know that about Socket. Today I learned. Okay. Socket.io has a website though, right? Yeah, they have a website. They have a logo. Let's copy the image address. We're going to need that. So that's going to look something like that. So if we run this now, let's do an entry, and this is going to be a Node library. So we're going to go Node, we're going to go libraries, and we're going to call it socket.io. Is that what it matches on the... No, they actually capitalize. So I broke something. Let's try this again. So Node, it's a library. It's called socket.io. It's capital S. The URL is going to be socket.io. The URL for the image for this resource is going to be copy image address from here. What is the description for this resource? I'm going to just copy and paste as much as possible. What tags? We gave it the framework tag. I'm going to, technically this is an API library. I'm actually going to, and data fetching and data process. Well, not processing, but data fetching is true. I wouldn't call it an HTTP client. And I wouldn't call it a lot of this other stuff. I'm going to go with that. Now, we didn't mark this before, so I'm going to put in. What is the repository URL for this? So in our example, we had this before. I'm going to borrow it. Now, you might be like, why are you just copying and pasting a thing that's already there? It'll just be easier for me. That's why. I'm testing if this overwrites things primarily. Yeah. So this does almost everything I expected it to do. It's missing something. We forgot authors. And this is why we test our own scripts. So if we add an entry now, and if we go back down to get prompt, and we do libraries, this should have had the author prompt, because this clearly has an author. So we're going to put this back, and then we're going to run it again. And we're going to try it one more time. And libraries, and it's socket.io. And it's going to be this SVG URL. And this is what the description is going to be. And then what it, oh, I'm off by one. I'm totally off by one now. I messed up. All right. So Node, libraries, socket.io. Let's go grab the actual value that I intended to put here. So here's the current value. If we go to our, does my clipboard, copy. Please tell me you've been on the whole time. Oh, nope, you're not. Okay. Well, I was hoping my clipboard tool was on. It wasn't. So I lost all of that. That stinks. But we could do all of this again. So if we do this, and then I said before that I wanted to put which values? API libraries, data fetching, and frameworks. I'm going to just do data fetching and frameworks for now. Who's the author? I put the author of this blog. It should be author of this resource. We'll fix that, and that's okay. But let's grab the original value. We didn't support authors on this one, so it'll just need to be that. What is it the repo? Repo. This one's repo. And then we're going to need the package next. And then this is node. If we come here and we don't save it and now we reopen it, we'll see that everything here is now explicitly written. If we save it, we'll see that we do have one problem. This XML thing's a problem. So we have a bug inside of the script, which is if we get SVG XML, we need to fix it. So we just need to do exactly what Copilot just suggested. So I'm going to do it one more time because I think it's worth doing one more time. Node libraries. And again, we're just going to do a lot of copy paste. And hopefully we're doing good on time because I do need to go in a couple minutes here, unfortunately. We have built a pretty handy CLI today, y'all. I know it's a little verbose and there's a lot of steps, but this would have been the same as like a web form. And we're dealing with developers who are going to be contributing to this thing. So if we come back to the socket.io file one more time, we see we have the SVG. It's got the right name. If we come look, we have a socket.io SVG the way we expect. We have this bad one that I didn't delete earlier, but now we're good. And so if I were to go open up the node site, if we go open up node today, and we can close socket.io, we can close this one. Oh, this one's upset with me now, and it's because something doesn't match. What did I break? I broke something for what it's worth. It doesn't match a formatter. So socket.io does not match. Tags is required. Why were tags not saved? That's a great question. Tags. Yeah, data fetching and frameworks should have been in the tags. It's because they're saved in a field called framework and not tags. Which means I have another little mistake. Happy accidents, y'all. Inside of, so we can fix two things. For author, who is the author of this resource? Done. That's one bug. Two is inside of our default prompts where tag is. Default prompts, the tag should have been tags. And with that, if I change this to tags, we'll actually see it working. And then if we go to the libraries page now, if if we look for socket.io on our page, we'll see that it's broken. But if we go to our library card, and like I mentioned earlier, if we just change this to source for a minute, just to see that in play, and we refresh the page, we can see this works. Now, what I'm curious about, this was flagged as dark, so maybe let's actually flip it around. Oh, that looks so much better. Yeah, this one should have been true, not false. So lesson learned, but fixed, and it looks a whole lot better. So now we have socket.io working. Now we have our CLI working. Now we can actually see some of our stuff. Like if we go to sales real quick, like sales PNG, our sales JSON. I'm actually curious if I do the dark image background here, for instance. Like, see, now sales looks better. So this dark image background, like this just controls whether or not it's on a dark background or not. So we might need a better name for that, but like, is image inverted, or would the image look better on a white background? Like Sales.js, for instance, like their logo is on black. They would prefer this on black. So there's your brand guideline, kind of following that semantic, making sales look good, making socket look good. Next looks better. Like everything is starting to come up the way we want it to come up. And super duper fortunately, and I'm just gonna, again, I'm trying not to make too many changes simultaneously because I'm not sure that's the right way I want to approach this problem. But if we're looking at this, like we are in a much better place today than we were last week. Actually, you know what? I don't want to make that change there. I've already decided how we're going to fix this. The way we were fixing this before, we were doing this. Image before was just the image source. So we want to override that. And actually, we can go ahead and just override all of these this way. And that's probably going to fix most of the website now that I think about it out loud. Or not. And it's not fixing it because did I do a bad on the index page? And not actually, yeah. So the collection data here uses this form of the function, which just needs the same. If I do the same thing here that I did there, which means this should be a shared function now. But we're just going to ignore that for now. Everything looks much better now. I mean, there's still some problems, and we need to go through and figure out, like, why are these books broken? Why is everything kind of broken still? But like most of the stuff is now rendering correctly. So there's your better underlying fix to a problem we had. But this actually gets us using the image assets from the content collections correctly rather than the other way around. And now we can just go around fixing images and everything looks super great all of a sudden. So, oh, and I guess the other thing to fix here is this is, all right, let's, basically I want to do save without formatting. What we want to do in our script is we need to do one more thing. So if we go to our package.json, this isn't actually going to output anything, or at least I don't think so. So if we look at our add entry, it's going to exit. We go to the system process. We need to run prettier from here. Run prettier via node script. I don't think you can. Oh, yes, you can. Oh, I'm about to write a super faux pas. We're going to do a faux pas of programming. We're going to call exec. So we're going to do this, and then what we're going to do is we're going to exec exec sync, I guess is what it's called. yarn format, and then I don't think we want to pass in the standard IO, and then I think we just need to import this from Node. I mean, it should be node exec. There's a way to do this. How to implement. I want to, and I've got 5 minutes before I have to hard quit on y'all. But let's see if I can solve this in less time than that. So it comes from node child process exec. Okay, so I should be able to just do import from here, exec. So if I import exec from node child process, and if I just call exec here, all right, we're gonna do this the bad way now. So let's create a new file called node. Oh, actually, we're gonna do this the right way one more time. So let's do socket.io. Let's do. All right, let's go to our socket.io file. We can just copy and paste almost everything except for this one. So if we grab that, and then we can grab everything else from this file for the most part. Data fetching, frameworks, who's the author, Guillermo, and this guy. Yes. Repo is that. NPM is that. Node is that. And then this time, if I go and reopen the file, it's now prettified because we ran prettier on the file after we made it. So check out all of our prettier action. We see that our SVG is there. Everything looks good. Everything looks great. And if you don't trust that I did it, we'll do another file on another night. But we have our CLI, and it works really well now. So we finished our file formatter. We finished our save file. We have identified, we have our migration script to create an entry generator. We are going to run a TS expect error. This is fine. But actually, TS on, oh, okay. Can I? All right. Well, that works. That works. And I guess I did it twice. Why did I do it twice? I didn't mean to do it twice. This should just be available tags. That's why. Cool. That's much simpler. And then this is fine and everything's happy. And now we have a working script. So now, and then we can pull that in. That's a rule that we're going to follow. And then we can actually use the socket.io because this was our example where we fixed it. And then this can just be now git commit -m. What are we doing? Add entry auto generator script. And we'll need to write the README for it. But I should have done, it's still mad even though I fixed it. we'll need to. This wasn't enough. We're gonna have to go fix these issues now, but it's interesting because it is a string now, because what I've done, at least theoretically, what I've done is if I go to like the book card where this is, or feature here, let's go to this one. This is where it's complaining. Feature and list, it's complaining on source on featured image. So featured comes from featured, and featured is items, item 0, where item is going to be normal or book. Is that in prod now? I'm curious. But this will be where we leave off. This is where we'll have to pick up next time. As a reminder, one more stream and then I'm gone for a month. I'm getting married. I want to get married. So we're going to do that, and I'll be back. So I'll see you next week. We'll have fun finishing this off next week, because I think we're at the place where we're going to finish this now. Yay. And then next time after that, I will see you in May, and we'll pick up whatever comes our way. We're going to hopefully finally get to the CSS stuff I've been promising for a month now, but this has just been in the way, and we'll smile as we do it. So I hope you have a great night. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you on the next stream.